U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Welcome to the U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action weekly video podcast for October 7th. I'm your host, Phil Lempert. Very special guest today, Erin Fitzgerald, our CEO of U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action. And we're going to talk today about Honor the Harvest. We're going to talk about probably one of the most important initiatives ever taken on by farmers, ranchers, agriculture. Erin, welcome to Farm Food Facts.
Welcome, Phil. Great to be back here. You've had a lot of great guests the last couple of weeks. Can't wait.
Yeah, we have. And most of them have been at Honor the Harvest. And I want to just give you my impression, being both at the first Honor the Harvest on the farm with 200 of our country's leaders, if you would, and then doing it virtually over the 6-day period just a couple weeks ago. What my takeaway is, and I know nobody wants to hear this, I actually like the virtual better. I got to meet more different people. I think that when you're in a barn with 200 people, you're sitting at a table, you talk to the people at your table, you wave to the people your friends, maybe you meet some new people at dinner and so on. But kudos for the whole USFRA team who put this together. I thought it was fabulous. And I really thought that a lot of the interaction was even better than at the first one.
It's so funny. 90 days, as you know, being on the advisory council, we were questioning if we could move the event to September and have it in Iowa still and be in a farm. And of course, little did we know Corona would hit and then the derecho. So even where we would be having the event would have been kind of precarious, to host. And I think that the digital event, one, it allowed for multiple breakouts and that paired leadership, which we always do, but we were able to do through Zoom a series of still engagement and ensure that each person had mini groups to have little conversations. And I think because we've all been in the Zoom boombox for so long, everybody was kind of thinking, how are you going to pull this off? But we were still able to make it a high engagement leadership event. And I think that towards the end of the forum, as you know, people got very emotional. I think largely because it was the first Zoom experience that you were able to have that was really familial and really related to people-based rather than just information-based.
So let me start at the beginning. Why is Honor the Harvest so important, and what is it all about?
Yeah, well, fundamentally, over the last decade, we've seen a lot of great efforts in sustainability, a lot of different groups that are focused on it, and we felt fundamentally that while there has been amazing sustainability practitioners and organizations and different efforts going on, that we fundamentally lacked a leadership forum to really bring the best and brightest together and get an integrated strategy and plan. And, without a common vision, a common lexicon, a common roadmap for how we're all going to work together, we felt that was a big missing hole. And in particular, as we thought about 2020, this is pre-COVID, we kept seeing that there was this increasing need for leaders in action, especially as we moved into the decade of action on climate change and the Sustainable Development Goals. We felt that we really needed to accelerate and bring these leaders together and really answer the call of leadership. And I would say 2020 ended up being that year, even more so. I mean, as you know, Phil, during COVID, we were trying to help leaders meet the moment. And, our advisory council said, now more than ever, we need to lean in, and there's never been a greater time for this moment. And we were saying that last year, and this year, 2020, really became that year to lean in.
And I also think, in doing a lot of the interviews here on Farm Food Facts and a lot of the farmers and ranchers, one of the things that I think it's important that we take the lead on and that we, put on our shoulders is, frankly, letting people know, whether it be retailers, whether it be consumers, anybody across the supply chain, just how good farmers and ranchers are doing as it relates to sustainability. I mean, the stories that are, in our archives are fabulous ones. And every farmer that I talk to, they say we're doing all this great stuff and nobody knows about it. So to underscore your point that we need this leadership, that we need this common voice to get out there, I think it's critical. And I also applaud you and all the board for putting together the vision principles. And I'd love to go through each of those and talk a bit about why it's so important. And the first one is exactly what we're talking about: collaboration. How are we going to collaborate better?
Yeah, I think that particularly during COVID, that value really got reinforced. We saw many of the food sector and retailers making business decisions that immediately was having impact on the farm gate. We saw farmers that wanted to connect and better engage and predict with the retailers and value chain. And then we saw Feeding America as well, needing a lot of resourcing and support all up and down the value chain. And I think in many respects, COVID was a fire drill, a test of what it means to really collaborate. And, fundamentally, sustainability, you might as well just substitute the word for super complex. And if we're not all figuring this out and working on it together, then what are we doing? So this requires, I used to say contagious collaboration. That was my big buzzword last year. Of course, I'm not using that anymore this year, but it does require a level of collaboration that's unprecedented. And I think what we're trying to do is create a call to arms that we have to work together. We have to learn and lift up the best.
One of the stories that I loved hearing on an interview that we did a couple weeks ago was from a farmer who obviously talked to other farmers. But because of COVID-19, the farmer network expanded. And he described it as, he used to talk to 6 or 7 other farmers, in his local area. Now he's talking to scores of other farmers throughout the entire country to be able to share ideas, to share challenges, to really help each other. And that's one of the great things that came out of this mess as well. Another vision principle is leadership. We talked a little bit about that, but talk a little bit more about what's the kind of leadership that we really need, whether it's at the government level, the farm level, the association level, the NGO level. How do we pull together all this leadership?
Yeah, I think leadership is fundamental in this quest. So leadership really requires saying where you need to go. And then the second is followership, right? And when it comes to the idea of the decade of ag, we felt it was strong. It was very important to really align on that common vision, because if we're all leaders, we have to step up and step out and give more unto ourselves than just your own organization, but have to give more to the common cause or the common vision to make 2020 a reality. And so we're saying this requires bold leadership, not just any leadership, but bold leadership. And we're asking leaders to really step up and step out towards that vision.
So my favorite value, if you would, of the list is the next one, which is appreciation. And that's appreciation of the land, of each other, the communities. Tell us more about how that made this list.
Well, appreciation is a really interesting word choice as well. That was specifically designed, as you know, by the different stakeholders. And appreciate means to recognize, to look with openness, and to lift up and appreciate in value a strength. And that really comes from a technique that we use through appreciative inquiry, which is to really celebrate the diversity and the strengths of the system. And so appreciation is also really indicative of diversity and inclusion, as well as respecting the differences that exist in all of our farms, the differences that exist within all the different value chains, and also where you are in your own leadership or your own arc of the story, if you will. And so it's just appreciating where we are in this current situation, and then lifting up in value our strengths. So it's basically, if you've watched 30 Harvests, it's kind of built on this X-Men theory, that everybody has these hidden talents, and we should appreciate those talents and lift it up to its highest purpose.
And clearly, over the 6 days that Honor the Harvest virtual took place, I saw that. I saw the appreciation in every meeting that I was in, whether it was the one-on-one meetings or small group meetings or the larger meetings. Really, and maybe because of COVID-19, but everybody's voice was heard. Everybody's voice was built on, was discussed. I mean, I've been, as you have, in meetings, industry meetings for decades. And, somebody pipes up with an idea and somebody else says, nah, lousy idea, move on. And we saw none of that. And it was really, even if an idea wasn't perfect, somebody else, whether it was a farmer, whether it was an NGO, whether it was an investment banker, would build on it and hone it so that the group really could be empowered and own it. The next value, and it's also an interesting word, it's ingenuity. And in most cases today, I think that people wouldn't say ingenuity, they would say innovation. Why ingenuity?
Yeah, ingenuity, that was so funny because, all these words were carefully chosen by so many stakeholders. And it was at one time, I think, innovation early on. But ingenuity was about creating the spirit and the place for lifelong learning, creating the culture around innovation, and also inspiring new innovation or ingenuity from places other than the food and ag sector. So we have a lot, for example, we can learn from the renewable energy sector. We have a lot we can learn from the healthcare sector and others, and really look at how we can infuse a mindset and create a culture of innovation towards that decade of ag challenge.
So we hear a lot about farmers and ranchers being the stewards of the land, and that's the next principle, which is stewardship. But what does stewardship actually mean?
I love this because I've been working on sustainability for quite some time. And when I first started working on sustainability, it was definitely a corporate social responsibility mindset. You saw many companies back in 2007 taking on this. And I remember going out to visit a farmer, and he walked out and showed me the deed to his family farm that had been in the generations for 5 generations. And he said, "Is this what sustainability means?" And I went, okay, how do we adapt the language of sustainability? And then I was got to go to the UN several times, and I saw that there's these sustainability goals, and we all set goals. But the question I have is, what makes a person get to the goals, want to take action on goals? And that starts from a deeper innate place of stewardship. And those are the values and the commitment to really want to leave this world better for the next generation, want to leave our land better for the next generation. And sustainability, that is putting your values into action, making the tough business model line up day in, day out, no matter how tough it is, for the community and the planet. And so we will always speak to the journey towards sustainability goals as both stewardship and sustainability. It has to first start from a deeper place. And I think culturally, we have a community, both if you look at farming and food makers, that we have been doing that for generations. We are committed. We love food. We love giving service to our communities to provide food. And we need to tap into that deeper innate sense of purpose to really make the goals come alive.
And I love that you've combined the heart and the head together with this, that both have to be involved with stewardship. And we should have a contest. We should see who can show us the deed that goes back the most number of generations, and then hang it in the USFRA office.
I would be curious.
A copy of it. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool. I wonder who is.
I would love that. So the last principle, especially as we've discovered with COVID-19, is evidence based. That we just can't be out there, talking a good game. That we have to have evidence, we have to have science, we have to have reporting on it, and I guess what do we then do with that information once we have this good evidence-based information and these learnings? How do we share it?
Yeah, this one actually came up, as you know, part of day 1 through day 6. And I think largely similar to the diversity question, we're seeing in the science world as well, science versus emotive based conversations, particularly as it relates to COVID, as it relates to vaccines, and a series of other conversations. And you can say also GMOs and climate change, right? I often am in 2 different conversations where one group will say, GMOs aren't scientifically backed, but they believe in climate change. I'm in another room where they believe in the science of climate change, but they don't believe in the science of GMOs. And often we do attribute emotions with science. And I think what this is saying is search for the answers and make certain that we are doing the due diligence of science. And in particular, it's very important for agriculture because as we look at the next decade, for example, we are just finding out the amazingness of soil, what's underneath our ground. In fact, we know more about the surface of the moon and the
Right.
constellation than we do know about our soils. And to me, it is the untapped frontier. So oftentimes in conversations, when I hear stakeholders, they're like, well, it's not this and it's not that. I'm like, well, it's important to know what we don't know, just as important as what we do know. So if we have a question, that is a point of inquiry. Let's go figure it out. Let's go do the science to make it possible, rather than just saying it's not an option. So, when I think about the next decade in particular, we have incredible frontier. If we imagine climate change really happening, and I do think, as we've seen the last 3 years, this sector is going to have unprecedented science to meet the changing and dynamic conditions of episodic and extreme weather events, the ability to grow food in those biological conditions is a frontier unknown. And so the purpose of the science, say like, let's get going. We need unprecedented science. We need unprecedented data, and we've got to get that in our hands of our farmers. So it's really a call to arms on science and innovation.
So we started this discussion with me sharing my biggest learning from this year's Honor the Harvest, which was meeting a lot of new people, hearing from a lot of experts. You've talked about climate change, and I forgot the expert, and in fact, it could have even been Tom Vilsack, who shared that one of the biggest problems because of climate change is going to be the probability that we're going to have more pandemics as a result. So to your earlier point, this was a test. And we've passed, we've learned a lot from this test, and more great things are going to happen as a result. On a personal level, what was the biggest takeaway for you leading the effort from this year's Honor the Harvest?
I really appreciated the diversity in the room, of all different perspectives. I love to hear all the different viewpoints, and just to feel that they had a safe space to have a conversation about stretching. And then the last day for me, I think, was the most important to see the vision get realized. Last year we had asked, can we create a common vision? And I was really afraid during COVID that we'd all focus on the moment and not the long term, and not really lean in. And so for me, even every day, I was just hanging on, like, I hope we can get this vision agreed upon so that we can get momentum and sign on. And the fact that we came away with that vision and really strengthened it over the next 6 days, and it came alive. And just watching individual leaders accept the leadership challenge, the commitments to step up. There was a lot of emotions on day 6. I think we saw a couple people getting teary-eyed, probably myself included, because this is a moment. It really is a moment to really think about 2020. All this year happened for, a reason, and how it could have been another year. We'll look back at 2020 and be like, that is how the Decade of Ag got launched. And we need to make certain that, it doesn't stop here. I think one of the things that I always say when people use the word conference, I'm like, this wasn't a conference. There's many conferences. This is a leadership moment in time where we saw leaders really step in and lean in, and what's coming out of it over the next 6 months and year and decade is what matters most.
And Erin, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing Honor the Harvest to fruition. And thank you for leading agriculture. And thank you for being on Farm Food Facts.
Well, it was an amazing group effort, as you know, amazing team and facilitators and just advisory council and all the sponsors and all the participants really hung in there, and they contributed to this. So it's definitely a team effort. So everyone was working very hard, and we'll look forward to getting back with you, Phil, on the vision commitment.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
U.S. Farmers and Ranchers in Action would like to recognize the sponsors of the 2020 Honor the Harvest Forum. Our movement sponsors, United Soybean Board and National Park Board. Our presenting sponsors, Wells Fargo and Cargill. Our gold sponsors, Bayer, Dairy West, Nebraska Soybean Board, McDonald's, Nutrien, and the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research. Our bronze sponsors, Purina and Ernst & Young. Our youth sponsor, Ruan, and our donor sponsor, Tyson. For more information on all things food and agriculture, please visit us at usfarmersandranchers.org. Also be sure to look out for us on Facebook at US Farmers and Ranchers and on Twitter at USFRA. Until next time.